Magic Treehouse, Book Number 22, Revolutionary War on Wednesday, by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 1, Wednesday. Wake up, Jack, Annie whispered. Jack opened his eyes. He looked at his clock. It was 6 a.m. Come on, Annie whispered. She was standing at his bedroom door, already dressed. Now? Said Jack. Yeah, it's Wednesday. We have to go to the treehouse, she says. Oh man, Wednesday, said Jack. Suddenly, he was wide awake. We have to save, we have to help save Camelot, said Annie. I know, said Jack, scrambling out of bed. Meet you out front, said Jack. Meet you at front, said Annie. Jack quickly changed into his jeans and t-shirt. He threw his notebook and pencil into his backpack. Then he slipped down the stairs and out the front door. Annie was waiting in the gray early light. All set? She whispered. Yep, said Jack. They took off, running across the yard. They ran down the quiet streets and into the Frog Creek woods. Soon they came to the treehouse. They climbed up the rope ladder. In the early light, they saw Morgan's note, the same notes that they found on Sunday. Jack picked it up and read aloud. Dear Jack and Annie, Camelot is in trouble. To save the kingdom, please find those 4 special kind of writing in my library. Something to follow, something to send, something to learn, something to land. Thank you, Morgan. Annie picked up the piece of paper lying on the floor. It was a list of rules from the famous nurse Clara Burton. They had met her on their journey to the Silver World. On Sunday we found the first special writing, said Annie. Something to follow. Yeah, said Jack. And now we need to find the second thing. Something to send. He picked up the book lying near the note. The cover showed soldiers on the snowy riverbank. The title was The Revolutionary War. Jack frowned. Uh-oh, said Annie. Another war, said Jack, sighing. You still want to go? Said Annie. We have to, said Jack. He hated the suffering he seen in the Civil War, but they had no choice. They had to help Morgans and save Camelot. He pointed at the cover of the book. I wish we could go there, and Jack said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster, and everything was still, absolutely still. Chapter 2, Day or Night. Jack shivered. The wind blew hard. It's cold, he says. He could see his breath in the air. Wrap your surf tighter, said Annie. Jack looked down. He had a wool scarf around his neck. He was also wearing wooden pants that buttoned at the knees, a coat, and a hat with 3 corners. On his feet were funny-looking shoes with buckles. In place of his backpack was a leather bag. Annie was wearing the long coat over the long dress. Jack pulled his scarf tighter. Then he looked out the window with Annie. They landed in the trees near an icy river. The sky was gray and heavy with cloud. it's almost day or almost night. I can't tell, said Annie. Yeah, I hope it's almost day, said Jack. I wonder where we will find something to stand, said Annie. Jack shrugged. First, we have to find the Revolutionary War, he says. He opened a research book. By the gray light he read, over 200 years ago, the United States was made up of 13 colonies ruled by Britons. From 1775 until 1782, American patriots fought for independence from Britain. This was called the Revolutionary War. Jack took out his notebook. He wrote American patriots fight for independence from Britain. Jack turned the page. There was a picture of soldiers in red uniform. He read aloud. During the Revolutionary War, British soldiers wear red uniform. From this reason, they were called redcoats. Jack wrote in his notebook, British equals redcoats. Wow, snow, said Annie. Jack looked up from his writing. Annie was holding her hands out the window. A few snowflakes blew in the treehouse. Not much yet, said Jack, but we better find the special writing soon. Well, stop reading and come on, said Annie. She buttoned up her coat and started down the ladder. Okay, said Jack. He packed the research book and his notebook into his bag. Then he followed Annie. When they stepped into the ground, there were more snowflakes. The sky was growing darker. I'm afraid it's almost night instead of day, said Jack. Yeah, said Annie, looking around. Hey, look, people. She pointed at up the river. In the misty distance was a campfire. Several men sat around the fires. They all had muskets. Maybe they can help us, said Annie. She started away, but Jack grabbed her. Wait, I think they're soldiers, said Jack. They have muskets. Remember the musket from the Civil War? The gun that soldiers carried? Oh, yeah, said Annie. They might be redcoats, said Jack. Let's sneak closer and get a better look at their uniforms. Quick, said Annie, before it's too dark to see. Chapter 3. It's time. Annie lifted up her long dress and ran into the trees close to the river. Jack held on his hat and ran after her. They peeked out from behind the trees. More snowflakes swirled in the twilight. Redcoats, whispered Annie. Can't tell, said Jack. In the flickering firelight, the men didn't seem to be wearing uniform at all. They wore rag pants and coats. Some even had their feet wrapped in the turtle cloth. Come on, Annie says. She ran to the tree closer to the river. Jack followed. This is as close as we should get, he whispered. But we still can't tell what they were wearing, said Annie. She crept forward and hid behind the scarf bush. No closer, Jack whispered, but Annie took off again. She crouched behind the rock. She was only about 10 feet from the campfire. Oh, brother, she's way too close now, Jack thought, but he took a deep breath and ran to the rock. When he joined Annie, she looked at him and grinned. "This is like hide and seek," she whispered. "It's not a game, Annie," Jack whispered back. "It's war. Be serious." "I am serious," said Annie, her voice wrestling. "Shh," said Jack, but it was too late. One of the men stood up and looked around. "What's the matter, Captain?" another asked. "I heard something," said the captain. He held off his musket. Jack stopped breathing. "Who's there?" the captain shouted. Jack looked at Annie. She shrugged. "We're caught," she whispered. "Who's there?" the captain shouted again. "Just two kids," Annie answered in a small voice. "Come out and show yourself," the captain says. Jack and Annie stood up from behind the rock. They both held up their hands. "We come in peace," said Annie. In the shadowy twilight, the captain moved toward them. "Who are you?" he asked. "We're Jack and Annie," said Annie. "Why are you spying on us?" he asked. "We weren't spying," said Jack. "We just wanted to know if you're redcoats or peregrines." "Which would you like us to be?" shadowy figures asked. "Peregrines," said Jack. "We are peregrines," the captain says. "Thanks goodness," said Annie. The captain smiled. "Where are you from?" he asked. His voice half softened. "We're visiting relative nearby," Jack says. "Frog Creek, Pennsylvania," said Annie at the same time. "But that's amazing," the captain says. "My farm is in Frog Creek. Where is your farm?" Jack didn't know how to answer. "It's near the Frog Creek woods," said Annie. "All farmers are near woods," the man says with a laugh. "What?" Just then someone called from up the rivers. "It's time, Captain." The captain turns to the other man near the campfire. "It's time," he repeated. The soldiers quickly put out their fires. They stood with their muskets on their shoulders. "Time for what, Captain?" Annie asked. "Time to meet up with our commanders-in-chief," he says. "Return to your family now, so your mother and father won't worry about you." "Yes, sir," said Jack. "It is nice to see children," the captain says. "I was just trying to write a letter to my own son and daughters. I didn't know what to say." "Tell them that you missed them," said Annie. The man smiled. "And I do, indeed," he said softly. Then he turned and headed up the riverbank. His rag man followed behind. Soon they all disappeared into the cold mist. Jack looked around. The wind was blowing harder. The snow was sticking to the ground. "What now?" he asked. More than anything, he wanted to go back home. With the soldiers gone, the river bank felt lonely and scary. "We still have to find something to stand," said Annie. "I know," said Jack. "Maybe we should just follow the captain and his man," said Annie. "They might lead us to something." Jack wasn't sure that was the good idea, but he didn't have a better one. "Okay, but let's try not to get caught this time," he says. He and Annie took off through the frozen twilight, following the snowy footprints of the American peregrines. Chapter 4. Commanders-in-Chief. Jack and Annie ran along the riverbank. The wind whooshed over the cold water. What snowflakes? He's in the dark. But then Jack heard other sounds. He heard voice, lot of voice. He and Danny soon came upon hundreds and hundreds of soldiers gathered near the dark rivers. Many carried oil lanterns. The lanterns gave an early glow to the snowy twilight. The captain and his men must be here somewhere, said Jack, looking around. Boats like giant canoes were tied near the rivers. Men were leading horses and loading cannons onto the boats. What are they all doing? Said Annie. Jack pulled out the Revolutionary Wars book. He read on the whisper on Wednesday, December 25, 1776. December 25? That's Christmas, said Annie. Today is Christmas. Cool, said Jack. He started reading again. On Wednesday, December 25, 1776, the Peregrines were losing the war. Ragged and weary, many were ready to give up. Then something began to happen that would turn the war around. About 2,400 American Peregrines gathered on the west bank of the Delaware River in Pennsylvania. They prepared to cross the river to go on the secret mission. A secret mission? Oh man, said Jack. He started to pull out his notebook. Attention troops, the commanders-in-chief, the soldiers shouted. Jack and Danny saw the man in the dark caps and the three corners had ride up on the white horse. The commander-in-chief looms above the crowd of soldiers. His caps flap in the wind. He sat calmly and with dignity on the back of his horse. Even at a distance, Jack thought the commander-in-chief looked familiar, very familiar. But he couldn't figure out why. The dangerous mission lied before you all, the man shouted above the winds. But I want you to have courage. You must remember the word of Thomas Paine. The commander-in-chief held up the piece of paper. He read to his man. There are the times that try man's souls. The summer soldiers and the sunshine patriots will, in this courage, shrink from the servants of their country. But he that stand now deserve the love and thanks of man and woman. Wow, that's great, whispered Annie. Listen to the powerful word. Jack felt his spirit rise too. The harder to conflicts, the more glorious the trampies. The commander-in-chief read on. What's we obtains too cheap, we listen too tightly. It is dearness only that give everything its world. There was a silence, as if everyone was thinking about the word the man had read. Then the soldiers started cheering and clapping. They didn't seem tired at all anymore. Now they seemed eager to set out on their missions. The commander-in-chief settled in his man. He steers his horse toward the rivers. As the horse moved past them, Jack got a better look at the riders. He gasped. Of course, he thought. He'd seen that face before on dollar bills. Jack grabs Annie's arm. I know who the commander-in-chief is, he explained. He's George Washington's. Chapter 5. The Ladders. George Washington's? Really? Said Annie. Yeah, I think it is, said Jack. Wow, where'd he go? Said Annie. I want to see him again. Come on. She started toward the river. Wait, don't go far, said Jack. I just want to make sure it's him. He opened the Revolutionary War book. He found a picture of the boats on the river bank. He read, when George Washington scattered his troops by Delaware rivers, he was commander-in-chief of the whole American army. The Gold Journal led the armies for 6 years until America became a free and independent nation. In 1789, he was elected as the first president of the new United States. Oh man, it is him, said Jack. He pulled out his notebook and wrote, Journal George Washington, how America became independent. Hey, what are you writing? Someone asked. Jack looked up. The various soldiers were pointing at him. Jack shoved the Revolutionary War book and his notebook into his bag. Nothing, sir, he says. He started walking away. The man shouted after Jack, but Jack ran down toward the river and lost himself in the crowd of soldiers. When he looked over his shoulders, he was relieved. The bearded man was nowhere in sight. Stop, young man, someone shouted in lanterns right in Jack's face. Jack gasped. It was the captain. I told you to go home, Jack, the captain said sternly. Where's your sisters? Jack looked around. Where was Annie? I don't know, he says. Find her at once and go back to your family, the captain ordered. Our secret mission is very important. Children will only get in the way. Yes, sir, said Jack. The captain started to leave, but he stopped. I wonder if you could do me the favor, Jack, he asked. Sure, said Jack. The captain put out his letter. This is my letter to my children, he says. It's a forward letter. Would you please take it back with you to Frog Creek? Yes, sir, said Jack. You must only stand if you're here that we have failed in our missions. The many patriots were lost, said Captain. Yes, sir, said Jack. The captain handed his letter to Jack. I copied the general's speech of my children, the captain says. If anything bad happened to me, I hope those words will give them courage. The captain turned around and disappeared into the crowds. Good luck, Captain, Jack called. He hoped he would never have to send the letters to the man's children. Suddenly, Jack clutched the letters to his chest. Send, he whispered. The letter was the writing Dad had been looking for. Something to send. He and Annie could go home now. Their mission was over. Jack shoved the captain's letter into his bag. Now he just have to find Annie. As he looked around, he shivered. Where is she? He muttered. Jack started moving through the crowd, looking for Annie. It was hard to see. The wind was blowing harder. The snow fell faster. Jack started to panic. Annie, he called as he moved quickly in and out of the crowd. He kept calling for her. None of the soldiers noticed him. They were all too busy Finally, Jack came to the rivers. Through the limpid mist, he saw soldiers waiting to get into the boats. Some have already climbed aboard. Jax, came the cry. Jack saw the figures of the small girl. She was sitting in the back of the biggest boats. No way, he whispered. Jack charged down to the boats. He stood at the edge of the waters. What are you doing? Jack shouted. This is George Washington's boat, Annie says. It's our big chance to spend time with him. We might not get another one. Jack looked at the other end of the huge boats. Through the mist and falling snow, he saw the commander-in-chief talking to his crew. We can't go with him, said Jack. We'll get on the way of his secret missions. Besides, we have something to send now. What? How? Said Annie. Letters. The captain gave me his letter to take back to the Frog Creek, said Jack. We're only supposed to stand if something's bad happened to the captain. We can go home now. Oh, can't we go a little later? Annie asked. Jack climbed into the boats and pulled her out. No, come on, he said, taking her hand. Suddenly the crew moved into the back of the boat near Jack and Annie. The man grabbed their oars and started pushing the boats away from the shores. We're taking off, said Annie. No, we have to get out, said Jack says to the river, but the man was working too hard to pay attention. They were using the oar to hack up the ice at the edge of the rivers. Excuse me, Jack said in the loud voice. Just then, the boat jolted forward. Jack nearly lost his balance. The boat broke through more ice. Rolf waves swooshed against its sides. We'll have to go back, said Jack. Too late, said Annie. They were heading across the Delaware River.